By now you know the town, the decorations, the silence, the children no one talks about. But this is where the story changes, where I stopped observing and became part of it. If you don't know how this started, the first part of this story explains why. Merry Christmas to everyone listening. I hope yours is quieter than this town's. Morning came late to Hollow Creek, the sky a dull grey that never quite decided to become daylight. The footprints beneath my window were gone, not filled in by snow, not blurred by wind, gone as if they'd never been there at all. I told myself that was a mercy. I didn't believe it. I started walking the street just after breakfast, knocking on doors that stood ajar from the night before. Inside the first house, nothing was overturned. No broken furniture, no blood. The living room looked staged, too neat, too careful. Christmas photos still hung on the walls, but the faces of the children had been cut out, leaving pale silhouettes behind. Clean cuts, patient hands. In the next house, I found a crib, empty. The blanket folded neatly at the foot, still warm when I touched it. That's when my mind made its first, easiest mistake. He took them. Children, bodies. That was the story every horror wanted to tell. Monsters take flesh. Monsters leave mess. I wanted it to be that simple, but nothing fit. No remains, no stains, just absence where presence should have been. In a hallway closet, I found a box labeled "First Year." Inside were baby shoes, a lock of hair tied with ribbon, a hospital bracelet. The box was empty, but the dust around it had been disturbed recently, like someone had lifted it, examined it, and put it back lighter than before. House after house told the same quiet story. Albums missing pages, not whole books. Drawings removed from refrigerators, leaving tape outlines behind. Stuffed animals left behind but washed, stripped of scent. Whatever came through Hollow Creek wasn't stealing children in the way I'd imagined. It was curating them, reducing them, taking only what proved they had existed. I stopped in the street, dizzy, the cold finally clawing through my coat. If the children hadn't been taken, if not physically, then where were they? Why did every adult I passed carry themselves like mourners who'd already buried the dead? My thoughts circled something sharp and unbearable, refusing to land. That's when I realized the worst part. The absence wasn't sudden. It was gradual. Year by year, Christmas by Christmas. The town hadn't lost its children in one night. Hollow Creek had given them up, piece by piece, memory by memory, until nothing remained to give. And standing there, surrounded by houses that still decorated for an audience that no longer existed, I understood something that made my stomach turn cold. Whatever walked the streets last night hadn't come to take children. It came to collect the proof that adults remembered them at all. I found the old woman at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. the window behind her fogged white with cold. She didn't look surprised to see me, just tired, like someone who'd been expecting the knock for years and finally heard it. "You figured it out," she confirmed before I spoke. Not a question. I asked her where the children went. She shook her head slowly. "That's the wrong question," she corrected. The house creaked as the heater kicked on, and for a moment I thought I heard bells buried deep inside the walls. She told me about wishes, but not the kind children make. Not toys or snow days or impossible hopes whispered into pillows. These were adult wishes, quiet ones, practical ones, necessary, she called them. One year the mill was closing. Another year the creek flooded. Another year sickness came early and stayed late. "People asked for help," she said, "and something listened." I asked her why it answered. She didn't know, or wouldn't say. She only told me that the bells used to sound brighter, lighter. "They changed when the asking changed," she murmured. After that, she refused to use the name, wouldn't let it sit on her tongue after sunset. "What did you give?" I asked. Her hands tightened around the mug until I thought it might crack. "Not at first," she said. "At first, it took what we didn't notice losing. Memories, drawings, laughter. Then, after a while, proof. She didn't explain what proof meant. She didn't have to. I asked why the children stopped being born. She stared past me, through the wall, into something older than the house itself. "That wasn't part of the bargain," she whispered. "Or maybe it was. Maybe we just didn't hear that part over the bells." The heater clicked off. The silence pressed close. Before I left, she said one last thing, soft, almost apologetic. "It still brings things, you know." I turned back. "What kind of things?" I asked. She smiled then, just barely. "Relief," she said. "Continuance. Someone else to carry it forward." Outside, Hollow Creek felt smaller, older, like a place built around a single long night that never quite ended. I realized then that no one here talked about punishment or reward, only exchange. And whatever walked these streets didn't need belief anymore. It needed successors. The whispering started just after midnight, when the house settled into that deep, deceptive quiet that makes every sound feel intentional. At first, it sounded like wind slipping through brick, but Hollow Creek hadn't stirred all night. Then the whisper shaped itself into something softer, familiar, a voice testing syllables, like a mouth remembering how to speak. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and that's when I heard my name. Not spoken aloud, breathed. Drawn out slowly, lovingly, the way my mother used to say it when she thought I was asleep. Then another name followed, a nickname, one no one outside my family should have known. The fireplace downstairs exhaled. Warm air rolled up the staircase in steady pulses. each breath damp and heavy with the smell of soot and iron. The walls clicked softly in rhythm, expanding and contracting like ribs. I wanted to believe the house was settling. Houses do that in winter. They don't usually learn names. I crept to the landing and looked down into the living room. The fireplace glowed faintly, not with flame, but with heat. The bricks darkened as if damp from the inside. Ash sifted upward instead of falling down. Then a sound came from within the chimney, fabric scraping stone, slow and labored, like something forcing itself through a space that remembered being smaller. A sleeve appeared, red but not bright, dulled, matted, streaked black with soot. It strained against the opening, trembling, fingers curling and uncurling as if testing the air. The bells rang once, muffled, inside the chimney itself. The sound vibrated through the floorboards and into my bones. "Not here," I whispered without meaning to. The whispering stopped. For a moment, I thought I'd been heard. Then the voice returned, closer now, right behind the bricks. It spoke my name again, slower this time, savoring it, as if tasting something it hadn't had in years. The heat intensified. Paint along the mantel blistered and cracked. Soot bled through the mortar in thin black lines, running downward like veins. The sleeve pulled back slightly, stuck, straining. Something larger shifted behind it, breathing hard, patient, certain it would fit eventually. I backed away, step by step, until my shoulders hit the wall. The bells rang again, this time from inside the house, answering themselves through the vents and walls. The chimney wasn't breaking in. It was learning, measuring, preparing. The house was quiet when morning came. Too quiet. Like something had finished speaking and was waiting for an answer. I descended the stairs slowly, each step creaking under my weight, expecting heat, ash, destruction. Instead, the living room looked untouched. The fireplace was cold, clean, innocent. That was when I saw the box beneath the tree. It hadn't been there the night before. I was certain of that. Wrapped in thick brown paper, tied with red twine pulled tight enough to bite into the cardboard beneath. No tag, no name, just placed carefully, centered, like it mattered where it rested. I knelt beside it and felt warmth radiating through the paper. Not heat, exactly. Life. My fingers shook as I untied the knot. The twine resisted for a moment, then gave way suddenly, snapping back against my wrist like it had been under tension for a long time. Inside was tissue paper, folded, neat. Beneath it, lungs. Small, pink-gray, still breathing. Each inhale shallow but determined. Each exhale wet and soft, like a child sleeping through a cold. Tubes trailed from them briefly, then vanished into nothing, severed cleanly as if they'd never belonged to a body at all. The tag slipped out then, falling against my knee. I hadn't seen it at first because it was tucked beneath the box, hidden, polite. Written in the same careful handwriting as the letter. Tommy Calder. My chest tightened painfully as memory slammed into me. Tommy standing beside me in the snow, asking what I wished for that year. I remembered laughing, remembered saying I wished he'd never been born, because he always won, because he was better, because I was a child who didn't understand weight. The lungs took a deeper breath then, shuddering, struggling, like they recognized the sound of my thoughts. Beneath them lay a folded note. I already knew what it would say. I unfolded it anyway, hands numb. You don't remember what you asked for. I do. The ink bled slightly, as if written somewhere warm. The lungs continued breathing, waiting. They weren't dying, they were sustaining. And suddenly I understood. The gift wasn't punishment. It was balance. Proof returned to the one who had given it away. Something warm placed back into my care, heavy with obligation. Behind me, the house exhaled softly, satisfied. The bells rang once in the distance, not approaching this time, but receding. I was alone in the living room with my gift, the tree, and the unbearable certainty that something had been completed and something else had just begun. By the next morning, Hollow Creek looked no different, yet everything had shifted. The snow sparkled under the weak winter sun, decorations twinkled in polite rhythm, and children were nowhere, as they had never been. But I was not the same. My hands ached with warmth I hadn't known, and the soft echo of bells followed me wherever I stepped. I touched the fireplace and felt it respond. Heat radiated immediately, but unlike before, it didn't burn. It communicated, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I realized then that the house had accepted me, or perhaps it had marked me. I wasn't sure which terrified me more. Footprints appeared behind me in the snow as I walked the streets. Bare, wide, dragging slightly. I didn't recognize them at first, but then I did. They were mine, yet not mine. The bell's rhythm thrummed through me, vibrating in my bones, carrying knowledge I wasn't meant to hold. Knowledge of who Hollow Creek had been, and what it demanded. The tree at Alder Lane glowed faintly in the living room, silent now but not empty. The lungs rested in their box beneath it, calm. Proof had been returned. I understood their purpose without being told. I had seen too much, remembered too much, and something inside me had changed. I thought about Tommy Calder, about the child I had once wished away, about the adults who had handed over memories and fragments of their lives without knowing why. And I understood one horrifying truth. Santa didn't die. He didn't need belief. He only needed continuation. By evening, I walked the streets with the memory of bells echoing inside me. I noticed the houses adjusting, doors closing softly as if by themselves, windows dimming politely. The town responded to me the way it had responded to him. The presence was acknowledged, respected, and expected. I passed a window and glimpsed my reflection. Not exactly me, slightly altered, paler, eyes brighter, hands warmer, and something deeper, something patient, knowing and hungry, dwelling just beneath my skin. I swallowed hard, realizing it had begun. My turn to carry the exchange forward, to collect, to remember, to give. Hollow Creek waited, as it always had, as it always would. And I knew, just as I had known from the moment the letter arrived, that I would return here next Christmas, and the next, and the next, because there was no leaving. There was only following the rhythm of the bells, the pulse of the house, the silent requirement of the gift. And the final line came to me, quietly, with certainty. Next Christmas, they won't warn their children about Santa. They'll warn them about me. Thanks for sipping tonight's tale with Haunted Brew. Don't forget to subscribe, and sleep tight if you still can.